recording. Hi, we're on. Hi, guys. This is Doug, and you're back to What's the Hazard? It is Friday. What's the date today? The 22nd, maybe?
22nd.
My guest today, this mug right here. If you're watching, turn off the TV and put it on radio. We both have radio faces.
Sound only.
Don't we?
That's right.
It's good to see you, man.
You too.
This is my friend Brian Wood, Region 7 OSHA, Labor Liaison, Compliance Assistance Specialist.
Both of those.
Both of those.
Yep.
Anything else that I...
That's it.
All right, man. Thank you for being here.
Yeah,
You
appreciate
had to
it.
drive up from Kansas City.
Yes, sir.
First of all, you had to get permission to drive up from Kansas City, probably from your wife and your boss.
Correct. That's
So,
right.
And you've been up here for a few days working with the local office with Dan Dwyer of the CAS here in Omaha.
Right.
Awesome, man.
Yep.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
It's been too long.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
Been looking forward to this just to see you. I mean, really, I have.
Yeah, just to see what if you
Don't
know.
care to do this podcast, but
I know,
I just wanted
man.
to see Doug Fletcher.
No, it is interesting. We're going to do an OSHA update, basically kind of a Region 7 update. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the region. I know the agency as a whole has some emphasis programs and some areas that they want you to talk about a little bit, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, in my time with the agency, some of the most popular things that I did as the CAS, or even when we would appear at conferences and things, OSHA updates. Everybody wants to hear from OSHA. They want to hear from the agency and understand what the emphasis areas are, what they should be focusing on. Unfortunately, we don't get to do that very often, so I sincerely appreciate your coming up here to do this. Everybody will appreciate it. But let's start a little bit with the backstory, man. You actually had a real job for a while before coming to OSHA. Talk a little bit about your background and how you got to the agency.
So I was a union electrician, worked in construction for 10 years. And through the IBW, I'm a member of IBW Local 725 out of Terre Haute, Indiana. And through my involvement there, I was involved with my local safety committee.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I taught the OSHA 10 and 30 to our members. Ended up going back to school, National Labor College, to get my degree in safety and health.
No shit. So
yeah.
Explain that a little bit. I'm not even familiar with that. National Labor College?
Yep. It's no longer in existence. It went, I believe, bankrupt, but it was kind of supported by the AFL-CIO.
Okay.
And if your union was affiliated with the AFL-CIO, you got reduced tuition. So a lot of it was online. I actually had to go out there. It was in Silver Spring, Maryland, was the campus, and to do my senior thesis. Mm-hmm. And through that, I got to meet my senior advisor, and she happened to know somebody with OSHA and encouraged me to apply for a Department of Labor job, is what she said, not specifically with OSHA. Mm-hmm. But through my involvement with the IBW Safety Caucus, my local would send me to wherever that was held, and they would do that twice a year. And I met some labor liaisons with OSHA and got to network with them and know them. And in 2008 or 9, one of them was going to Region 8, Denver, replacing the labor liaison there. He was also an IBW member, Chris Mathewson, you may know.
Of course, yeah. I know Chris.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So he announced that there were 5 OSHA regions that were going to fill the labor liaison position. So being from Indiana, I applied for the one in Chicago because that was
Region 5,
closer to home for me. And I didn't get that position. And then the Kansas City one opened up. So I applied and ended up getting that one.
Nice, man.
Yeah, it was cool.
That's
very
fantastic.
cool.
I did not know the level of detail. I knew that you were an electrician, and I knew that you would come to us. I'd been with the agency for 10 or 12 years when you arrived, but I knew that you had a background in the trades. I didn't realize that you had gone through all of that training and you had that education behind as well.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And I told Dan this yesterday because Dan and I did a lot of outreach with unions. He didn't really know about unions until he came to work for OSHA, being retired military, and was telling him that when you and I did outreach with some unions up here years ago, that I remember you making the comment that the lingo that I used, and I didn't realize I was using it, right? That you have with trade folks.
No doubt, man.
And
it is a language.
Everybody
has their own language, and if you don't speak the language, you're obviously an outsider. So having someone who speaks the language is incredibly helpful.
And I think in that position, the labor liaison position is unique, and it gives you that credibility that with those folks anyway, that hey, this guy's been there, he's done that type of work, and now he works for the agency.
And so do you have like secret handshakes and stuff? Or?
I can't show you that.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I'm so glad to hear that. And I'm glad that you were able to get Dan in front of some of these folks and introduce him. It was very difficult for me as well. I can remember when trying to, initiate those conversations and make those introductions. And, being from OSHA, obviously they wanted to have some kind of a relationship, but I had not been in a union prior to OSHA, actually. I was in the government union, whatever that was called.
American Federation.
And I just joined the union truthfully because I think my boss was trying to fire me. So I was like, Phil, how do I join or maybe it was Seth at the time was the union rep in the office. Okay. I think Phil Pasali is that now.
He's the steward. Yep.
He's the steward, yeah. So I ran with my tail between my legs for help. I have to admit it. But, and they were very helpful. It was good.
Yeah.
And so talk about your position a little bit, the labor liaison position, the compliance assistance position. Kansas City is the regional office. For those that don't know, Region 7 covers Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, and Iowa. And so what is a typical day for you? What do you do for the agency?
A lot of outreach and education. We're non-enforcement, so we work with both employers and workers. And just, and I guess my niche would be worker rights kind of a thing. And I try to, although I will reach out to employers, I try to reach labor unions as well as worker advocacy centers, those that are advocating for workers that we consider underserved or vulnerable populations, and make sure that they know their rights with OSHA. How to file a complaint, who can file a complaint, that type of thing. Because even with unions, I think what happens with OSHA, and this is my thoughts as a union electrician, people that's been around with OSHA think unions just know their rights. They think they know OSHA, and that's not always the case. Oftentimes, that's not the case. And with the trades, especially, you might have an election every 3 years. So those relationships you've built they're no longer in that position. So you have to constantly, build those relationships and make sure that the new administration that comes into that union knows their rights, know that they have the right to participate when OSHA shows up on the job site,
And just know who you are. I mean, you are serving as their liaison. If they need to interact with the agency, they should be contacting you oftentimes to initiate that.
Yeah, and I encourage them to do that, and that's just part of the relationship building. If you don't have that relationship, they're not going to reach out to you. Just yesterday when Dan and I went, we went into an IBW Local 265 there in Lincoln, and we told them we were here with OSHA, here to meet with the business manager, and the guy jokingly tried to slide the glass thing on his OSHA. So, and they have that misconception about
of course,
OSHA.
Man. Everyone does.
Yeah.
And that's nice. But once you have that relationship and they know there is someone that they can reach out to, I really enjoyed that aspect of the compliance assistance position. You are non-threatening.
Right.
You're not an enforcement person. Even though you may be located in an enforcement office, you're not really the enforcement person.
Right.
And sometimes that feels safer.
Yeah, it does. And it's just articulating that to your audience that is the case. And it's still, you have to build that relationship so that they truly understand it. Because you go in and say that, you're still with OSHA, right? Yeah. And they don't understand that OSHA has another side other than enforcement.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, relationship building is, I think, a big part of it.
No doubt.
And
I thought it was really a huge part of it. In fact, I petitioned my boss at the time a number of times to just dedicate 2 or 3 more compliance officers to the outreach. And I thought we could do a significantly better job of, interacting with the community than just hammering them all the time.
Right.
But that was denied, of course. And probably wasn't appropriate for the mission anyway, frankly. But
sure.
I think outreach was really useful. It's important.
Yep. Right.
So you touched on something. I don't want to put you on the spot here, even though I think I'd enjoy it. But one of the things, accompanied visits. I know there is some, I don't know if it's a proposed rulemaking or there's some things going on within the agency about non-union facilities, the employees having the right to have an accompanied visit if OSHA shows up, and that might be, I don't know if that's dictated by the compliance officer, if they feel that the employees need representation. This is not, are you familiar with what I'm?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah,
I know it's not a done
rule.
deal. Yeah, proposed.
Right.
But
it is. It's the employee walk-around representative.
Yeah.
Proposed rule. And from what I understand, they've tried this in the past. It didn't.
I
It didn't
do
go
recall
through.
it, yeah.
And
so
it's
what is it talking about, basically?
just a third party can be the representative for workers on any site, whether it's construction or general industry. Doesn't necessarily have to be a union person. That's that walk-around representative. It could be a worker advocacy center, like Nebraska Appleseed, for example. You know, those types of people that might be advocating for those workers. And you're right, it doesn't change the fact that the compliance officer does have the say in who is that representative.
Ultimately,
that participates. And if they're not going to add value to the inspection, they're not going to be, allowed to participate.
I thought that was interesting. Certainly, employees are not always well represented during the walk around in facilities that don't have union representation,
Right.
or smaller facilities oftentimes, and so they don't really have a voice. You walk around typically as a compliance officer with a representative of the company who certainly has a bias to the outcome, and so it's an interesting proposal. I don't know the magnitude of it, and I'm not well versed in it to know what the pros and cons of that might be, or why people would be opposed to it. But I think it's interesting.
Yeah, and I haven't read the complete rule, but it will be interesting to see if it goes through.
Yeah, I mean, I never read anything until it was a done deal. I just didn't have time to read all the proposals and things when I was working for the agency, man.
Yep.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about some of the emphasis programs, some of the things the agency is doing. Any in particular that you want to focus on, or?
Well, currently what we've been doing outreach on is warehousing. There's a national emphasis program on warehousing.
Yeah, is it just like beating up on Amazon, or is it more than that?
It's more than that.
Okay.
And it even gets into retail establishments with high injury illness rates.
Okay.
Which can be your home centers, hardware stores, grocery stores. So it includes that. It's kind of broad. But that's one thing, we've been meeting with the Teamsters on because it affects a lot of their members, and just ensuring that they know their rights and how to participate if OSHA shows up to do inspections, make sure their stewards are trained.
It's interesting that warehousing, well, particularly these huge mega centers now that, like the Amazons and some of those
distribution centers,
huge distribution centers, I don't think they even view themselves the same as maybe like a manufacturing facility. I'm not sure they even consider themselves to be regulated oftentimes, I mean, and grocery stores, I don't know about you, man, but I've spent much of my professional life when I see something going on in a facility like a grocery store or something, I might say something to the manager. You really can't have that 12-year-old using the meat slicer or whatever,
Right.
Things like that. I don't think they really even think about it sometimes.
Yeah.
And so
I think that's true. We were speaking earlier, and I told you I have a 15-year-old. He had his first job after the end of school last year, and I had to learn.
Bomb tech, or what was he doing?
No, it was a very good first job. He was working at a restaurant, just seating people.
Nice.
So you would come in and he would set you.
Good.
So it was a good first job for him. Good experience to meet other people older than him, and that. But I had to learn because he's working nights on weekends. What can they do? So I had to educate myself as a parent on what he's allowed to do, and I had to, ask him questions. What are you doing there daily?
Good for you, man.
Yeah. I mean, because I do care about him.
Oh, of course.
And I think that's something parents can do, is educate themselves, because here I work for the Department of Labor with OSHA, but there's regulations, as you're well aware of, that we don't enforce.
Right.
That can affect their safety and health, the hours they work. Is it affect? And I told him, once it starts affecting your grades, you may be quitting.
Right.
And you know how it is with new hire people. They're often injured on the job, and think about young workers. They're going to be new hires probably multiple times a year, that kind of thing. And just educating them on their rights. They're going to be afraid to speak up probably most of the time because they're new. They want to do the right thing. They want to impress their boss, their coworkers. And so it's just instilling some confidence, I guess, in them. And that's what I had to do with my son and say, hey, you can't work past this hour, so if they're going to keep you, just tell them you're done working.
I am so glad you said that, man. I think it is incumbent upon all parents to at least do a little bit of research and investigation about those things. There are every state, and I know the feds, probably Wage and Hour, some of those organizations have prohibited activities.
Right.
So, once you're 18, you're basically cleared to do just about any job, but there are certain jobs you cannot do between 14 and 15 years of age or 16, 17 years of age.
Right.
Oftentimes, things like roofing, you can't be on the roof, or even operating heavy machinery or being in a trench, all sorts of activities. And I don't think most parents really, or even the hours, as you said, if you're in school, you're limited to a number of hours every week,
every day, and you can't work past a certain time. I think it's 7 at night. You can't work past 7 during school nights.
Yeah,
and then that changes in the summertime. But yeah, I mean, you're right. There's a lot that, again, I had to educate myself on. And thank goodness I have Wage and Hour contacts, so I could call and ask those. But not everybody has that resource, so it's just knowing.
But they can certainly find the number and call Wage and Hour.
Absolutely.
If not, and oftentimes you can speak to a human being.
Yeah, right.
When you call the office. But it's all on the internet too. I've searched it out for people that were asking in the past, and if you dig a little bit, you can find those things.
Yeah, it's pretty simple generally.
Yeah, man. I mean, the young worker safety thing I know has always been an emphasis area for the agency. The thing that I see frequently is young people are coming from their first job. Maybe they're, working at a restaurant as a host or a hostess or something, or customer service, and now they're in an industrial setting.
Right.
And that terrifies me.
Right. No, for real.
They are just so unfamiliar with equipment and forklifts and all of the things that go with, more industrial settings.
Right.
They're just totally oblivious, and they kind of walk around with this little tunnel vision thing going on, and it really scares me.
Yeah. No, that's why it's important for employers to make sure that, youth, and communicating with them differently. They are new. They want to want to keep that job, right? So they're going to be risk taking. They're going to do things they probably shouldn't. So it's making sure that they don't take those risks, and tell them why. Tell them that this could injure you. By law, we can't have you do this.
Right.
Just in our region alone, we've had some youth injuries and even some fatalities.
Horrific.
And
man.
so, There's
is
nothing
bad. Worse than that.
It's not, and that's why it's an emphasis. And if you've watched the news, this has been some time ago, but a cleaning contractor, at a meat packing facilities throughout the U.S., not just one, was recently cited for child labor laws. And
hiring underage children or young people,
as young as 13 years old.
Yeah.
With all kinds of PPE on, cleaning with hazardous chemicals.
And around all of that dangerous equipment. Packing houses have an interesting assortment of equipment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. That does terrify me. And I think, again, you're hitting on some really interesting points. But anyone, it's not exclusively limited to young people, but anyone who's new to an environment has no idea what the hazards are. We just generalize, hey, work safely and shut up, and with no idea what that means, and no communication of what hazards exist in that work. And that's the employer's responsibility. They're required to communicate those hazards to all employees, but particularly young people. Come on.
Well, not only communicate them, but teach them how to recognize hazards, and especially youth. Maybe you can't teach them how to abate it. Hopefully you can, but if they can't, then teach them who to talk to. Maybe a mentoring kind of a system, somebody that's been there longer, like you, or and how to just teach them the ropes. What can I do? What can I not do? And then if something happens, who should I say something to, so that they're not afraid of being fired, or, even workers that are not young are often afraid to say something because they don't want to be retaliated against.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that OSHA covers whistleblower statutes, you know, and protects workers for doing that. I mean, you're required to report injuries.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people don't. And I'm guilty of that working in construction. You know, it's a tough guy mentality. You don't want to report a cut on your finger, but what if that injury gets worse over time and you didn't report it? It only hurts you by not reporting.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that is ego-driven, certainly. And
it sure is.
As you said, young people, they want to look like they are doing the right thing. They want to, they want to impress the boss. They want to, I was speaking to a young man yesterday, in fact, at a facility that I was visiting, and he was so excited. I recognized him as being new. I had been there before, and I said, "Hey, man, how's it going?" And he's like, "Oh, it's great." He means I make $5 more an hour than I made at Subway. And I'm thinking, well, you were putting fucking bologna on a sandwich at Subway, and now you're running, big, expensive, dangerous equipment. So you're probably entitled to $5 an hour more, but let's not lose focus on
the safety
what we're doing.
Right.
Yeah, I'm glad you're excited.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, that's what they're thinking about, right? They're thinking about that money.
Yeah.
And most people do. That's why we go to work, right? So
He's literally adding up his paycheck in his head while he's running the meat, the flesh ripper offer,
And not thinking about what can injure you. And that's the educational piece that comes into play for the employer, the parents, even teachers in schools can start, implementing that thing. And we're trying to reach out, I am personally, to more schools. We do a lot of career fairs, as you know.
Yes.
We've done that, but I actually want to get in front of the students.
Good for you.
And make sure they know their rights. And a lot of high schools are doing the OSHA 10.
Yes. I don't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
But that seemed like, when I was doing it, there seemed like so many things that we were doing just for the visual.
Exactly.
The optics of doing these certain things. But when we did 10-hour classes for high school students, or even just spoke with them for an hour,
right?
It really felt like that was something that was worthwhile. So good for you.
Yeah, and I'm still breaking barriers at this point with it, but trying to actually get in front of the youth. Aside sitting at a table, like you said, for the optics and just kind of giving them a brochure and telling them a little bit about OSHA.
Yeah, man.
Really making sure they understand their rights. And that's what, construction workers, these are adults that take the OSHA 10. And when I go to a union, for example, and ask them, I say, who in here knows how to file a complaint with OSHA? Very few raise their hand. And they've all had the OSHA 10. Some of them have even had the 30. But they don't, it's one of those classes that it's not high priority, right? Because they're learning the trade. Safety is just...
it's almost like an add-on. It should be, there shouldn't be separate safety training. That should be incorporated in the instruction of how to do the work.
Right.
So like if you're a welder or electrician, whatever that is, you should learn how to weld safely.
Yeah, and the hazards associated with welding.
Exactly. Yeah. So I really don't, I think there's a gap there in that when you are doing the safety training as an add-on to learning the job.
Right.
They should be inseparable, right?
Yeah.
I did a program for a while with Skills USA.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Have you had an opportunity to get in front of that group? It's kind of like a student, it's like a little bit of a contest type of a thing.
I have. They used to do a competition at Bartle Hall in Kansas City.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that was a good group. I can remember, they did the Nebraska competition would be held out, I think maybe in Columbus, Nebraska at the fairgrounds or something, and I would go out there and they'd cram 300 students into this big hall, and I would give an hour presentation.
That's cool.
And I'm not sure how effective it was, putting Grandpa in front of, 300 students who are all, they're having a great time. They're all in the city, and they're
competing to go to the national level too.
Yeah.
So,
but there were a series of videos. I think they were out of Canada, maybe, but they were these kind of. They were just videos of accidents. So they showed the person carrying hot grease and slipping on the restaurant floor and burning themselves, or they showed someone falling from a ladder. And while they were just somewhat comical, they were really powerful. The kids actually focused in on those. They didn't really listen to what Grandpa was saying, and I get it.
Sure.
But man, those were really impactful, I thought. There are ways. Part of the problem is communicating with young people is I'm not sure a language that I really understand anymore.
Right.
You know, so
Well, social media is a tool that, that OSHA is starting to use.
Are you?
Yeah, they have at the national level, and we can submit things regionally if we want to promote something. But yeah, they're using Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram.
No kidding.
And so, like HEAT, you know, the HEAT National Emphasis Program that we have out. We also have an alliance with Lamar Sign Company, so they'll let us put things up if they have availability. And then also just putting that on Twitter, you know, just those short clips. And
so I don't actually do Twitter, man.
I don't either. Nope.
The only one that I do is LinkedIn, and I can just barely stand that.
Right. I'm the same way. I'm not on Instagram.
It's just almost insufferable.
Never have been.
But it serves a purpose, and I get it that all of those others serve a purpose for the users of those platforms as well.
Well, and like you said, communicating with youth, right?
Yeah.
That's how they communicate.
How else are we going to get to them?
Right.
So good for the agency.
And I thought so too. It's an effective tool, and it reaches so much more people with a short, you know, the attention span's not as great. So it's just getting that quick
And so is there like a 17-year-old working in the national office now running that program? Or how are they managing that?
It's I don't know how old she is, but she is really good at it.
Is she? Good for her.
Yeah, she is. And she's quick. Even if we have short turnarounds, it's somebody that's solely there for social media.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Because that's, I mean, as you said, you have to meet people where they are.
Right.
And that's really about the only way we're going to get to young people, hopefully, you know, so good
Believe
for the
it or
agency.
not, the agency's thinking outside the box. So I'm telling you, it's good.
That is awesome,
and it's probably the youngers. You know, I'm turning into a grandpa too here.
I know, man. How old are you?
51.
Oh my God!
So, not yet, but
you're not a grandpa. Well, I mean that doesn't mean physiologically that couldn't happen for you, but I know your son is a young man, so we'll give it 10 more years.
I hope so. Yeah, I'm not ready.
And so another thing that you commented on, which is another program that has been probably, you know, it's been running hard for about 6 months over the summer, is the HEAT program, which I know the agency has taken great interest in, and I know the local area office here has done we had a really intense summer at times, you know, long stretches of hot weather, and I know the guys were out. There were National Weather Service heat warning triggers in the program that the guys would actually go out and visit sites and evaluate heat programs, and I'm interested in finding out what the results of that will be. I mean, it'll take a while to tabulate all of that.
Sure.
But hopefully it's having an impact.
Yeah.
What were you doing for that kind of stuff? Were you out with the locals and some of the other?
Yeah, teaching them
talking about heat.
You know, and understanding that OSHA doesn't have a standard for heat currently, but we do have the National Emphasis Program, so they do recognize it as a hazard, and are wanting to make sure that people voice that concern because, as you said, with the National Emphasis Program, they can go out and do inspections. But it helps that if there are people having issues with heat illness, you know, that type of thing, to file complaints, you know, because get to the places where it's a problem.
Yeah.
You know, and
that is the difficult part.
Yeah. And just making sure that they know that emphasis program is there. And even though we don't have a standard, it is a recognized hazard. I think most people know that now because it has been around for a while.
Yeah, undoubtedly. Hopefully.
And like you said, I mean, the summers have been crazy hot. And so, yeah, I don't think that one's going away anytime soon.
No. And I know there is rulemaking underway. They've been attempting to develop and promulgate a regulation for heat, which is interesting. That's a unique one, man. And I don't, you know,
it is. And there's some state plans like Cal OSHA that they do have heat standards.
They already have standards in
and
place.
I think Oregon and Washington do as well.
I would be interested to know. Well, I guess I could go find out if I was actually interested. I could go read those regulations and see what they entail.
Yeah,
but I wonder what the evaluation looks like. Has it been useful and successful in reducing to the point where, I mean, you know, I know that I can remember our buddy Phil one time, even back when I was with OSHA, he did a heat investigation related to a fatality, I believe. And if you know, based on the numbers and his evaluation, if you looked at the ACGIH, you know, heat recommendations, I think the company could work for 5 minutes and had to take 55-minute breaks. You know, I mean, it was maybe not quite that extreme, but I mean, that's at some point, when it gets really hot, the recommendations are almost crippling. You know, you can't really work. And so I just wonder what they're going to do with that. You know, when you reach, because it's not, I mean, we had 100-degree days here consistently for a while this summer in Omaha, and we certainly have humidity issues as well. So if you're following guidelines like that, you may not be able to work, and that we certainly don't want that to happen. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, me coming from construction, we did this well before, you know, heat was really an issue, and you start earlier, you know, in the day, and try to avoid those hours where it's most hot.
That peak heat hour.
And we did that years ago before, you know, it was even an issue.
Right.
And it may not be fun getting up at 4 in the morning to go to work, but you appreciate it after you get there and you're getting off before the sun's really, you know, an issue.
Right.
So there's ways
it's been going on
come around.
I mean, people understand that. I mean, I don't think they really are oblivious to the impact of heat like that. So it's just such a different, you know, when each individual has different sensitivity to the heat, and each individual's previous 24 hours impacts their sensitivity to the heat. If you'd been up all night, if you'd been out, if you didn't, you know, didn't get good sleep, maybe you'd been to a party or something, or whatever the case might be. There are so many variables in that it's really challenging.
It sure is, yeah.
And we talk, I know that you do this as well, but when I talk with people about heat, we talk a lot about, you know, the previous
night.
Yes. And the impact
you're absolutely
that has on your day. Medications that you might be taking. Any number of things. And so it's so complex.
It is
It's not just, you know, don't work when it's hot.
Right.
You know, it's really difficult. But I know, hey, the agency is
it's educating workers on just recognizing signs. So, you know your tool buddies. You know if they've been out the night before, and kind of just watching out for one another, you know. And
that's a big, you're right.
Just taking that break, knowing the signs of, you know, heat illness before it happens.
I think that's a big part. You've been busy.
I have been. I mean, this is way. I don't know. I don't want to say like I'm too busy. I don't have time to do anything. But we have been busy. It seems like OSHA has so many campaigns, which is great.
Right.
And you know the staff is limited, and but we're always out there trying to reach. Getting numbers,
No, limited. The staff is limited in numbers or just aptitude.
Oh yeah, no.
No, I'm teasing, man. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I love my OSHA friends, man. You know that.
No, I do. We appreciate it having the relationship here, and I know the Omaha area office is interested in developing the relationship with you as well too.
As I said, I know that people are really hungry for information from the agency. It was always the most popular session at any conference I went to, the OSHA update. If the area director were to show up, everybody was there. Because like Matt, you know, here in Omaha, everybody wants to hear from the authority, from the leadership. And so I know that we did a reasonably good job of that when I was with the office. You know, I mean, we tried to get out in front of people all the time, and I know you guys are doing that. There's a concerted effort to do that.
Yep. Our regional administrator, Billy Kaiser.
I don't know Billy, but I've heard great things about her.
She is great, and I'm not just saying that because I'm on camera here, but she is.
No, I've heard that too.
She is, like, I attend this one meeting monthly. It's the Labor Management Council there in Kansas City, and it's made up of management folks, and this is construction committee. And union folks attend this meeting as well as other entities. And they asked me if she would come and just introduce herself and kind of speak. And she had no problem doing it. And it was a great meeting.
Fantastic.
You know, just getting out and meeting our stakeholders. And like you said, it means a lot to them when the leadership, because they see me all the time. And they hear my messages over and over and over again. But it does mean a lot when it comes from leadership.
Huge.
And know that they're committed to it as well.
I've heard great things about her, man. And just the regional office in general. I mean, there's been quite a bit of turnover since I left.
Since I even come back, there has.
Has there?
Yeah.
And some of the folks that I came in with, I mean, even in the local area office, as you know, Darwin is retiring. Big D. I mean, he has been in that office. I mean, for, I don't know, when he started long before I started with the agency, I think in 96. So he's been there
a long time.
In the early 90s maybe, and he's finally
Yeah,
pulling the plug.
in the next month. I know it. Yeah, I can't believe it.
So all of the old folks, and so I think people that don't know leadership in the region or in the area office need to find out who those people are, meet with them when they can. If you have an opportunity to speak with one of the leadership of your local office, or if you can speak with your CAS or anybody, you should have a relationship with the office.
Please reach out to us. I mean, I think one of the few regions that has a CAS in every area office. So
Yeah,
reach
that's cool.
out. I mean, we're here to assist, not just enforce.
How do they get a hold of the office? I mean, are you able to give an office phone number? Do you know the office phone number?
Not off the top of my head. I don't know the Omaha area office.
No, not Omaha. I can give them the Omaha area.
well,
What about the region? If they wanted to get a hold of the region,
They can.
Do you know your number?
I do know my number,
Okay.
and they can reach out to me, and I can put them in contact with
Of
their local
course.
CAS.
How would they reach you if they wanted to?
You can reach me at 816-502-9034. And you can even call my mobile phone, 816-681-2640.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And please do, because we want to hear from those that want to hear our message, and we're trying to reach underserved, vulnerable populations.
Right.
And maybe small businesses that are just starting up. I know you've had on-site consultation on here.
They do a great job.
I always, every time I'm doing an OSHA update or anything, that even with unions, I tell them, hey, if you have small businesses, you work in a high hazard industry, being construction, here is a resource that is free and confidential to your employers, and will, so that they don't have to fear OSHA.
Right.
Do the right thing. And so I am always pushing on-site
Good for you,
consultation.
man. I totally agree. And, Jim Cover is the program manager here in Nebraska. He's been a friend of mine for a long, long time. We kind of started together, he with the state and me with the feds.
Okay.
And we're both pump hangers, IHs. And so we went to a lot of training together. And I really appreciate what they do. I know there are still people who are reluctant to contact OSHA consultation. Sure. They fear that connection with the government, whether it be the feds or the state. But I'm telling you, the OSHA consultation program was well considered when they wrote the act back in 70 or whenever they wrote that thing, 69, 70.
Yeah.
And it is an incredibly valuable service.
Yeah.
I wish more people would take advantage of it.
That would be a nice guest for you to have, is somebody that's used
that's
on-site consultation and promote it.
Well, it's one thing for Jim to come on and talk about the services, but it would
somebody
be
that's actually used it.
That's a great idea. You tell me how to do my podcast?
That's right.
No, that's a great idea, man. I think that would be really beneficial. And maybe we bring on some of the union guys at some point. They want to talk about what they're doing for safety and how that works, if they would be interested in doing something like that. I really, there are a lot of people that have an important message, and I just, this is incredibly important. It's always important to hear what the agency is asking of us and what they need us to be doing. And
OSHA can't do it alone. OSHA is a small agency, and it takes folks like you that's out there speaking with employers daily. It takes that commitment. You got to be committed to safety and health.
Yeah, truly.
And I'll add, because I know when they initially requested this podcast, it was during Safe and Sound Week. Mm-hmm. You're familiar with that campaign that they do, and that's typically the week is typically in August. But they want us to make it an all-year thing, not just make it that week. And Safe and Sound is just about having good safety and health programs. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, another good reason to use on-site consultation. They can help you with just that.
Absolutely.
If that's what you want. And then not just management commitment, but getting employees involved, whether it's union or non-union. How better can you learn what hazards are out there than speaking with your workers? Mm-hmm.
Good for you, man.
Getting them involved, yeah.
You're starting to get your hands around this stuff. I mean,
is this a more intelligent conversation than you were expecting?
I had no idea what to expect now. I'm kidding, man. But how long have you been with the agency?
On and off. So I came to OSHA in 2010.
Okay.
And then I left in 2016.
Okay. For a short stint,
about 5 years, and then I came back end of 21.
Okay.
As the regional compliance assistant specialist.
I'm glad you're back, man.
Thanks, man.
You're an important piece of this puzzle.
I appreciate that, and honestly, I realize it too as somebody from labor, how much that outreach is needed. honestly, because I think people within OSHA feel that the unions know how to file complaints. They know, we tell them all the time, but those turnovers that they have, and with personnel, that they don't. And I mean, I do outreach a lot, and it's amazing how much of the elementary stuff that we know as OSHA folks they don't know.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of misconceptions about OSHA, but certainly misconceptions within OSHA about the regulated community.
Exactly.
Like you said, what they know and
don't know.
And we're sitting waiting for them to call, and when they don't, we assume everything is fine. And
exactly right.
But they're really not always
the case. Yep.
Fully understanding how that system works.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Good, man. Got any plans for the weekend? Are you a football guy? Are you a Nebraska football fan?
No, I'm not like you guys are pretty big up here. I'm actually a Bears fan.
Are you? Good for you.
I just grew up in Indiana, and that's before the Colts came there. Mm-hmm. So I just have always stayed a Chicago Bears fan. Yeah. But I do like the Chiefs. Don't get me wrong. Love the Chiefs.
Sure. Yeah, they're fun.
It's a good group.
They win pretty regularly, so they're fun.
Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, we like to root for winners.
That's right.
But I've always kind of liked the Bears, too. I was a Dick Butkus guy back in the old days. You know,
I'm a Walter Payton. He's my all-time favorite football player in the world.
Well, they've had some amazing people on the Bears, part of that organization. So they're easy to root for.
Yeah, it's tough here recently, though, but...
It has been a little rough. I'm a Buckeye too, right?
So I didn't know that.
Spent some time at Ohio State.
Well, I'm a Big Ten guy, so my wife's a Purdue grad.
Oh, really?
I went to IU for one semester.
No kidding. So you have an affiliation with IU. You can claim them.
Yeah, all right. That's right. Good. I am an IU fan. If college football's on, or definitely basketball, I'm watching the Hoosiers.
Yeah, I think Ohio State has Notre Dame.
They are always good. I hate the Buckeyes.
Both of these teams are in the top 10, and they're out in South Bend, so it'll be quite a game.
That will be. Buckeyes are good.
They're good. They've got a new quarterback, so there's always some time breaking the new guy in, but they've got some pretty decent specialty players, skill players and stuff, and Notre Dame looks really tough. I've got a good buddy, Aaron, who's a Notre Dame fan, so we've been kind of, each year we look forward to this.
Do you go there?
My wife loves to go to the games. My wife will occasionally go to Columbus, or even she'll go. I mean, she went to the 2002 national championship game. She went to the 2014 national.
Nice.
I stay home and watch it on the couch.
Gotcha.
I'm a couch watcher.
Right.
I prefer to be.
The older I get, I'm the same way.
It is. Big crowds are not my thing necessarily.
Me either. I hear you.
The good news is I never draw a big crowd. So.
I did not know you were a Buckeye, though. So
man. I went to graduate school at Ohio State.
I'll be darned.
Yep. So, I lived in Columbus for 12 years. Met my wife out there, So, I've got some ties to Columbus.
Big Ten country, yeah.
Big Ten country.
Yep.
Which is interesting because now that we've invited all these West Coast teams into the Big Ten,
it's crazy.
The USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington, they're all coming to the Big Ten.
Well, even throughout the country, just the way they've reorganized, all the different, what do you call those?
The conferences. Yeah.
Is just changed dramatically.
It is.
It's weird.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, man, it's always good to see you, brother.
Yeah, you too.
I appreciate your coming up.
Yeah.
I appreciate you spending some time with Dan and introducing him because, as corny as it sounds, man, we all want the same thing, right?
Yeah.
We all want safe workplaces.
Sure.
Safe and healthy workers. We're all working on that same thing. So thanks for coming up.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. This will be really, you'll probably be a celebrity on Monday morning when you wake
or
up.
Fired, one or the other.
No, man, you didn't say anything that's going to get you in trouble.
Okay, good. I was trying to watch mine.
Really good information. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Doug.
Have a safe trip home.
Thank you, sir.
Everybody have a great weekend. You are doing really important work, so keep up the good work. And we will talk to you next Friday. Thanks, everybody.